Hello, everybody. Hello again, I should say. Welcome to another episode of my glorious video series featuring me, author, and other amazing authors. This week we've got the ultra amazing Rachael Lucas, who writes beautiful, beautiful books set in glorious locations with wonderful characters and lots of animals. Always very important to add.
Always.
Thank you for joining us from your car, no less.
Yeah, glamorously. Obviously, it's just because my chauffeur's got the day off that I'm. Yeah, it's the only place I can get some peace because writing in lockdown is not as easy as you would think. Turns out when you at home. So
I think it's good. It's like you're in a little cave with us.
it is. Yeah, I've even got a coffee.
And it's nice and quiet in a car. I always think that when I'm in the car. I miss long journeys. It's one of the things, weirdly, that lockdown has really put a dampener on my. I like putting an audiobook in and just going for a long drive, and that has been kind of curtailed.
Do you know, I've because I live quite close. We moved before lockdown, and I'm now quite close to the M6. I have to confess that at one point when I was stuck trying to write something, I couldn't get it to work. I got in the car and drove for 30 miles up the M6, turned around and then drove back down again. And by the time I'd done that, I'd fixed what was, the thing that was not working in my head. So
amazing.
Weird.
Something to be said, isn't there, for like a mindless sort of task like driving or running or whatever it might be. That for me, it was swimming. At our last book camp, we had, didn't we? And swimming lengths for me just made loads of things fall into place, which is I'd never realised.
Yes, well, but it turns out that it's still just driving, which is slightly less healthy than running. But you can drink a coffee at the same time and listen to music as opposed to dying.
I know swimming isn't my favourite, to be fair, but we can't all have a pool, sadly. One day when we're best-selling Netflix big hitters, it's all about Netflix. Anyway, we've gone off on a massive tangent, but
I know.
We need to tell everybody a little bit about you and your books.
Right. I write quite a lot of different things. I write contemporary women's fiction as myself, and those are the books that tend to be set in the countryside and yes, lots of animals. I also write so I'm trying to remember what they call it. I think cosmopolitan romance, I think is what they call it. As Rose Curtis. So my first one was set in London, and that was out last year, and my next one is set in New York. So that's really nice because it gives me an excuse to go and explore places. And I also write YA novels, again as Rachael Lucas, but so I write for teenagers as well. So
amazing, many strings to your bow.
Yes.
And your most recent book, The Telephone Box Library, am I right in thinking that that's based on a real telephone box library?
Yeah, well, it's such a funny thing actually, because it's actually set in, I set it in the village where I used to live when my children were growing up, when they were small. I lived there for about 10 years, and we had a telephone box in the village and they turned it into a library. But just as I was leaving the village actually, but it just struck me that it was, because I stayed in touch with everyone who was there, it was such a nice thing to see how it kind of brought the community together. And it's such a nice village to, there's only 600 people in the village of Galcott, which is where it's set. So everyone kind of knows everyone and everyone knows everyone's business. And I quite like that in a funny sort of way. So I thought I'd set a book there. And the historical thread that's in the book, it's the first time I've actually written a book which has got a sort of dual timeline. And the historical thread was actually based on some research that I had done, because I'd always been intrigued about this. There was a sort of building outside of the village, and people used to say, "Oh yeah, that was, we talked about that was stuff happened there during the war." So it was really hush hush, and it was sort of connected to Bletchley Park, but sort of an offshoot of it. And it's where they used to broadcast propaganda to Germany and across into Europe. And so, the more I found out about it, the more interested I was in the whole thing. And I just thought it's such a good story. So that's how I kind of tied the two together. So
I love that. It's sort of three places in one. Or
yes.
A dwelling and a little library and a place. And I agree. I think sometimes, there's something really alluring in fiction about a place that you can then go and see and visit.
Yes.
After. I mean, I obviously I write escapist fiction, and I get a lot of people writing and saying, well, is that restaurant a real place, and where should I go if I visit Prague, or whatever it might be. And lots of places I put in are real places that you can go to.
Yours are just like, honestly, it's so funny. I was thinking about Hello Again this morning, and just how I read it, I think at the beginning of lockdown, and it was just, honestly, it felt like having a holiday. It was just so, and it's just so full of sunshine and loveliness, and
I never know whether that's good or bad in this situation where people are like, oh, I'd love to go to Lisbon, but I can't. I mean,
exactly.
We'll be able to very soon, to be fair.
I have to be honest, I think it's made me want to visit. So actually, you should probably be being sponsored by the tourist.
I would love that. I'm still waiting for Zakynthos to make me an honorary citizen because I wrote my Mammoth View. I think it could happen. I really truly believe that they would let me live there, despite Brexit. Come on, Dante. I'll come. It's my dream to retire there one day and have a house overlooking the sea. And I love the idea of having a little sort of English style tea and cakes little place. There's nothing like that in Greece, or not.
No,
not
that would be amazing.
I think that would be really nice, but maybe one day. Do you have a sort of novel checklist when you're writing? Do you kind of think, right, I'm going to be writing, say you're writing a women's fiction book like The Telephone Box Library, does it have to contain a number of things, or do you just...
Do you know what the thing is? I thought about this, and I think it's a really interesting thing. I have never actually consciously thought it has to contain X, Y, and Z. But if you actually look at all of my Rachael Lucas adult books, they all have, there's always a second character who is older, usually quite a lot older, there's usually slightly fractured parental relationship. So do you know what, this is like a bloody therapy session. Hi, my issue. Slightly fractured parental relationship, often a dead, in fact, I think, to be honest, I think there's almost always a dead parent. I'm really bad for killing people off before the book starts. I think it's always somebody who is, it's actually what it comes back to, say this without sounding like massively pretentious. When I was at university, my dissertation was on E.M. Forster and the idea of people looking for the truth within themselves. And so I think actually the key sort of theme in all of my books that links them is probably a sense of people trying to find themselves when they might appear to have all of the external trappings that are supposed to matter, but actually there's something missing, and quite often it means, for example, in The Telephone Box Library, Lucy gives up her teaching job and goes and sort of takes a step back. So I think there is a bit of a theme. So I think that's probably I need to know that they've got a question that they want to answer, if that makes sense.
I think that's so relatable, though. I think, because that's essentially what life is, isn't it? Is searching for that sort of truth and that sort of feeling of contentment within yourself.
Yes, I think that's
for every single person, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some people never find it, and others find it very early on. I'm always look at people who are very settled and happy and positive all the time, and I think, how have you done that by 25? But
here I am at 47 thinking, right, let's try again.
I know exactly what you mean. I think actually becoming an author has taken me a much bigger step towards sort of my truth, I think.
Me too. I really do as well. It's a funny thing, isn't it? I think it's probably because you're spending so much time in every year writing about people trying to sort of work themselves out, that I think it's sort of therapy in a way, actually.
Definitely cathartic, isn't it?
Definitely.
Even if you start out with somebody very, very different to yourself character-wise, elements of the sort of emotions and the things that you've been through do always creep in, don't they?
And it's funny because do you always get that question, Lizzie? People always say, oh, are they based on you? And it's like, no,
No. Yeah, exactly. No.
And then it's on me. No, I've made them up in my imagination because that's actually my job.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
But it's not us, is it? It's more our experiences, I
yeah,
suppose,
I
and what
think
we
that's it.
know. And
Yeah,
sometimes I go into a book and I end up being taught a lesson through the process of writing it that I didn't
yeah,
know, but I must have known because it's come from me. But
yeah.
sometimes writing something down helps you make sense of it, I suppose.
Oh, I really think that's true. I think that I quite often I say that I don't actually know what I think until I've written it down.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I do find, yeah, driving about and thinking, and sometimes just sitting down with a pen and paper and sort of writing down, asking myself, what am I actually trying to say here? Sometimes really just helps with writing as well. So yeah,
It's almost like telling someone else. Like
yes,
the best way to
yeah,
learn something is to teach it to somebody else. That's what they say.
yeah, yeah,
They
exactly,
the
yeah,
all-seeing theys.
yeah,
You're like me. You always wanted to be a writer right from when you were a
yeah,
child. So how
yeah.
did you turn that childhood dream into a reality?
Well, it was such a funny thing because I actually wrote my first book when I was 11. My mum and dad got me a typewriter, and I laboriously worked on this book every night after school for months and months and months, and sent it off to, I think this story is really funny. Sent it to Pan Books.
Amazing.
Um, Here is my book. And actually, I got the book out of the library that told you how to submit your novel. So I typed my letter, and they wrote a really sweet letter back, which I wish I'd kept, which basically said, "Dear Rachel, it's not quite what we're looking for right now, but do keep on writing." So of course, you know, so very me that 30 odd years later, I turn up and I'm like, "Hello, Pan Macmillan, here I am." So they couldn't get rid of me. I'm very glad actually because they're lovely. But yeah, so I did that, and I wrote, and I thought I could be a writer, but I was, to be honest, at school nobody said you can do this. And it's something that actually it's something that's really stuck with me. So with my children, I'm very much, you want to be a footballer, okay, fine, you're gonna have to train really hard, you're gonna have to do this, but you can do it, but it was basically, oh, you're good at English, right, you could be a librarian.
Yeah, wow.
Doesn't actually have that much to do with English, and you've got to be very organized, and I'm not. So it actually took me a really long time. I wasn't until I was in my late 30s that I sort of found the courage to start writing, and I was blogging, and that was kind of how I got into it. And then I did NaNoWriMo and wrote the majority of a book in a month, and then I finished it, and then
Amazing.
I put it for ages. I put it aside for 3 years, and because I was just like, it's obviously rubbish, so. But then I eventually self-published it, and then it did really well, and here we are.
There you
So
are. That's amazing that you wrote it and then it just sat there for years.
I
Amazing.
know, until my
Yeah.
friend who self-published really successfully said, "Rachel, what's the worst that can happen?" And it was so funny because I sort of thought, if I sell 100 copies, I'll be really pleased. And then if I sold 1,000 copies, I would be delirious. And actually, it sold 60,000 copies within the first 6 weeks.
Wow.
And went to number 7 in the Amazon chart. And of course, everyone was going, "Oh, wow, that's amazing." Like author friends that I knew on Twitter going, "God, that's so good. You should be really pleased." And all I could think was, it's not number 1.
And that's why you kept going, though. Imagine if you had
Yeah,
got to number 1, you might have never written the second one.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so that was really funny because I had no idea that it was actually doing quite well. So,
It's
so
difficult, though.
I did it around. So I didn't have the applying to agents, go on the slush pile, hope that somebody finds you. I mean, I was really lucky because I kind of had it the other way around. My agent found me, and my publisher found my agent, and so
That's great.
yeah, yeah.
There's
So
a lot to be said for self-publishing, actually. I think even more
I
so now than ever before.
yes, I mean, when I did it, nearly 8-9 years ago, it was still a bit of a, you know this weird thing to do. But now I think it's, people that I know that self-publish just go from strength to strength, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah, you have to be so. See, I don't know whether I'd be that good at being my own boss and sticking to those sorts of deadlines and things. That, I mean,
for me, not even the deadlines.
So disciplined, don't you? Really,
to have to be everything. That's the bit I found really difficult, actually.
Yeah.
I really quite like being able to write my book, then hand it to my editor, and then have her hand it back to me, and then it feels a bit like a game. It's like ping pong, but with like a ping pong ball on fire. You're like, no, you have it. No, you have it. No, you have it.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah. If you have to be your own publicist and your own marketing person and your own editor, and you've got to have such confidence in your writing and your product. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to be dispassionate to be able to sell it sometimes, to step away, and that can be hard too.
Yeah, you've got to be confident that there's going to be people that want to read it, and so it's a lot. And I really do admire my friends that self-publish. I think they're amazing.
Yeah, me too. I sort of think about it every now and then. I'm like, no, I couldn't do it. I know that I would fail at the first hurdle. Although maybe I'll have to one day. Ooh, let's not tempt fate. Anyway, one of the things I love most about your books, which I mentioned earlier, is all the animals, especially the dogs, of course, as we are both dog ladies in the best possible way. Yeah, how many of your sort of canine capers are based on real things that happen in your house with the basset?
It's so funny actually, because Hamish in the telephone box library is a little Westie, is actually my sister's dog, and so funny because friends of hers who've read the book have come back to her and said, do you know that the dog in your sister's book is called Hamish, and he sounds just like Hamish? And so I said, yes, it is Hamish. And they're like, she's even written how naughty he is. So Hamish is I gave him a bit of a starring role just because he's such a monster chops. I love him, and I would say he's my favorite dog. My sister's like, you can't say that because he's not. He's your dog nephew.
True.
But yeah, I love him. He's really naughty and really funny and full of character. And my first novel, Still with a Kiss, there is a cocker. I think she's a working cocker puppy called Willow, and that was actually a family friend's puppy, Willow, and I just put her in the book because I loved her so much that I thought I do kind of weave them in. I keep thinking I ought to put my very naughty basset hound into a book.
If you're not already, everyone listening needs to follow Rachael on her social platforms so that they can be introduced to the world of basset. She is incredible.
She's so naughty though.
I've got 2 dogs and I've never seen a dog make so many different expressions. She's incredible. She's got like a aura of emotion going on.
It really does. She's in the bad books. Well, she's not really, but she would be in the bad books if she wasn't Tilly. Because I got up this morning and went into the kitchen and discovered that the sandals, well, of course the thing is it's my fault for leaving them there really, I suppose, but the sandals that I had just bought and worn once, and thought, these are now
no. I love the way we make it our fault. Like, oh no, the dog does it. It wasn't the dog's fault. The dog didn't mean to eat the chicken from next door. It's the chicken's fault for getting out. It's never the dog's fault.
The problem I've got as well with the other one is my middle dog, Martha, who has, I think she's got middle dog syndrome actually, very naughty Springer, who's very, very clever and gets very, very bored and has learned to open the fridge. So went into the kitchen the other day to find her sitting in the kitchen surrounded by a sort of assortment of empty chicken, bacon, cheese packets, and she's just looking really pleased with herself, like, look what I did, I found all these things.
She must sit there and watch everyone else go in and out of the fridge, so why wouldn't she? This is in a dog's brain. It's like, well, that's what everyone else is doing, so I'll do it.
When we realised that she worked out how to open, we had drawers that had little sort of just very slim little sticking out sort of knobs, and we worked out she went and pulled the drawer open with her teeth.
So cool.
And she's just, this morning she jumped out the kitchen window and ran off into next door's garden, and we had to go and rescue her. She is
might chase the chickens into the farm and try and get in the chicken pen. They won't They won't hurt them. I mean, I say they, it's only Julius, the young one. My older dog can't be bothered to run that fast.
No.
But yeah, it is embarrassing. The farmer just stands there, arms folded, kind of like looking at me like I'm ridiculous as I scrabble around on all fours trying to catch the slippery little heel of a dog.
Exactly.
He's going, look, Mum, they're all running around.
I make them do fun things. Yeah, I think this is the thing. I can't help putting animals in books just because they're such an important part of my life, but also I think because I can't really imagine a life without animals in it. So I find it hard to imagine my characters. Well, actually, that's not true. I think some of my characters don't have, but I think that possibly the process of finding themselves and stuff tends to involve some kind of, discovering that they quite want to have a pet along the way. So.
And I think they're always good for comedy. Like, it's small children as well are very good for comedy in a book because they don't have any filter and they'll say anything that you want.
Yeah, exactly.
All the characters are too polite to say. A child will just come out and say it. And dogs similarly can get people in all sorts of scrapes.
Yeah.
And I was actually thinking this week, my current book, I'm like, something is still missing from this book. It's got this great central story. It's got a mystery. It's got loads of, travel and beautiful locations, but it is missing something. And I think it's a dog.
A dog.
I think it is. I think a dog can teach you so much without being too wet behind the ears about love and about loyalty and friendship, and because dogs are very uncomplicated and they just love you. I've got a poster that just says, be the person your dog thinks you are, and I think that's a great mantra to live by, really, isn't it? Just be nice, be a dude.
And carry lots of things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and leave the fridge door ajar so I don't have to open it. That would be great.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what are you working on at the moment? Can you tell us anything about your next project?
I am, well, I'm a little bit stuck actually. I should be working on my next Rosie Curtis book, which is set in New York, but it's I was about to go off and spend a week in New York, just sort of soaking up the atmosphere and really thinking about the story, when of course lockdown happened, so the trip was cancelled.
New York's off the cards for a long time now, really.
So and I think the thing is that, I mean, I've been to New York 3 times in the last sort of year and a half, so actually, and I spent I spent 10 days there last year, so I mean, it's not like I don't know it well, but I think that it's proving quite tricky to write in lockdown, just because it's hard, because I've got 5 teenagers, well, and not all teenagers, some of them are 30s, 20, but a house full of people, a house full of dogs. I'm kind of constantly thinking about stuff like that, but I will be soon. I'm also going to start working on my next Rachael Lucas book, which is set in the same village as the Telephone Box Library. It's not a sequel, but it's a sort of companion. So, and I'm really looking forward to going back to that village because I really loved writing about it, and I know what it's about. It's funny actually, because it's much more sort of solid in my mind. So I'm quite looking forward to that. Not least because the love interest is a retired football player.
Oh,
so,
that sounds very Jilly Cooper. I love it.
Well, it is a little bit, yes, I think so.
You'll definitely beat her. Your book will be out before her next one will be.
Yeah, I did think that, but yeah, given the speed that I write and given the speed that Julie writes, I think I'll get there first. Yeah.
Can I just say, I've been on a writing retreat with Rachael in the past where she basically wrote an entire book in 4 days, and we had separate bedrooms, but we were sharing the same living space, weren't we? So we were writing in the same space, and she was just there on the bed like, like a machine.
That was the most I've ever written. I think that was the day that one of those days I wrote 12,000. In fact, did I not write 12,000 words a day every day? Yeah. That was utterly bonkers.
You shouldn't be allowed in word races because you're always at least 1,000 words in front of everyone else in the room.
It is actually, it's really sickening, but I think it's because I don't tend to write until I really know what's happening. So I spend, it's really funny because my writing career consists of probably 9 months of walking about saying, oh God, I'm not writing, and oh God, I'm fascinating, and then 3 months of, you know, a book comes out. So
yeah, intense. But I think that's
yeah,
just, it's your process, isn't it? And that's what's so great about talking to lots of different authors, is that every one of us has a different way, and sometimes
and
each book is different as well. Sometimes a book
yeah,
comes to you in parts and comes to you in stages, and you write it as it comes to you, where, you know, with your last one, it kind of just all came in a flood, and you were like, couldn't get it out fast enough.
it was just literally, here is the story. Shoo, there you go. Yeah. But I've had sometimes, and the New York one, I'm really, I feel like I keep sort of writing myself into corners. It's like I start writing and then I'm like, no, that's not right. So I'll start again and I'll think, no, that's not right. And then I'm sort of wondering if I'm overthinking it a bit, to be honest. But I think that's definitely a thing that can happen.
It's difficult to think about New York at the moment without feeling really sad for it, I think, because it's been so hard.
Really,
Really, for a city like that is so alive. I mean, I've only been to New York once, but you know, it makes London quiet by comparison. There's something going on all the time, and even if it's just, you know, drain covers that are steaming, there's always movement and sound.
Yeah, and the thing is, none of that. I've got a friend who, a writing friend on Instagram actually, who is over there, lives over there with her kids, and it's so interesting because she's like, you know, we've been for a walk and look, this is Broadway, and it's like, it's just completely empty, you know, 9 o'clock, and it's just so weird, I think.
And that's the soul of that city.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that busyness. I mean, even seeing pictures of London very quiet and everything deserted, you sort of,
it's hard.
That's not as unusual, because sometimes, you know, down towards Buckingham Palace and all that is cleared for events or whatever, so it's not, it doesn't feel as alien somewhere like New York.
No, but I think that's it. And I think the thing about New York is, because it's such a funny thing, because I'm a real country girl, and yet I went to New York and just fell in love with it. And I remember saying, it's like, you know, meeting a really unsuitable man that you know that you should get involved with, and he's just absolutely not right for you, but you're just like, I cannot not.
Yeah,
that's how
it's
I feel.
Intoxicating, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I could never live there. Wouldn't be able to handle living there at all. But
I know. But the thing is, it's like, I sort of feel like, I don't know. It's really weird. I really love it. Like, it almost feels like it's like I'm having an affair with New York. That's what I feel. It's like my secret city lover. I really love it so much. I wouldn't mind having a house there, and then I could just like pop in and out. But I couldn't live there full.
We have a friend that might be moving there next year, so we can go and stay with her.
I know.
She doesn't know this yet. Petition.
I'm going to go in a suitcase. So I can't wait.
Exactly. I think we should go over on bus. Just turn up. She won't be busy. It'll be fine.
Yeah, that would be so lovely. And go and drink cocktails. Yeah. Right.
We've got to the quick fire round. I've got my trusty coconut shell, umbungo, what I call it. Umbungo. I'll give it a shake. See what falls out. Okay, 3 have fallen out. So let's do this. Okay, question 1. Ooh, what's been your writing career highlight to date?
It has been it's The State of Grace, which is my YA novel about an autistic girl, being chosen as one of the IBI books, which so they have a sort of honor roll, and it goes around the world. It's a really, really big deal, and it was an amazing thing to be chosen as one of the IBI's worldwide recommended books for children with disabilities. So that was huge and amazing.
And very well deserved. Okay, number two. Da, 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 da. Ooh, your greatest achievement, is that the same? I mean, other than your children.
No, but are we talking about life or writing?
Life.
Life. I've got really nice children who've grown up into really nice people, and they're really level-headed, and they're very funny, and some of them can make a really good mojito, and they make me laugh. And do you know what? I think that's my greatest achievement. So I'm quite proud of them.
Yes, quite right. That's a lovely thing to say as well. Oh, this is a good one. Question 3. Do you have any unusual talents or party tricks? Other than writing a billion words a second. is your book camp party trick. is writing a book in 4 days.
Right, let's think about this. What can I do that's actually one of my weirdest habits is I can decide at night what time I want to wake up in the morning, and I will wake up without an alarm clock.
That's so weird.
Really, really
amazing.
Also weird, but I must have I just have a really good internal clock, because I can basically always tell what time of day it is without a clock.
I'm a bit like that, actually, especially on holiday when I'm sunbathing all day, and my friend will turn to me and be like, what time is it? And I'll be like, oh, it's 3:32, and it will be like, she's like, how do you do that? And I was like, I don't know, I just know the time. I like good at knowing how much time has passed.
Yeah. Oh, I know. In fact, I've got 3. There you go. There's another one. I'm really good at reading tarot cards for people.
Ooh, so that's I want you to read my tarot cards.
Oh, I will. Yeah.
Live session, maybe for another video.
Yeah, I will.
Somebody was talking to me on another video about, I think it's like spirit cards or cards or something. Yeah, I think it was Kathy, actually. Kathy Bramley was talking to me about that.
Yeah. I actually sometimes use the tarot cards. It's a bit, out there, but I do sometimes use them if I'm trying to get into the book, and I'll sort of do a little reading of, see it, because the cards can sort of inspire. You can sort of get stuff about the characters and things like that. So such a funny thing. I'm like so completely practical and down to earth, and yet I quite like a bit of wafty stuff from time to time.
A bit of magic. Well, we can all do with a bit of magic, especially at the moment.
Yeah.
Which is what this chat has been, absolute magic, and it's always so lovely to see you and catch up and share the book love. Tell everybody your social handles while we're here, so they can follow you.
Right. Well, handily, because I joined Twitter and used the name of my dead horse. My Twitter name is Karamina, so it's nice to find. But actually, if you just look up Rachael Lucas, you'll find it. My Instagram is Rachael Lucas. My Facebook page, which I'm appallingly bad at updating, is Rachael Lucas. And my website, which is also desperately, it's going to get. It's also Rachael Lucas. So, but basically, you'll find me on Twitter or Instagram procrastinating when I should be writing. So
yes, and read the Telephone Books library for many reasons.
Yes.
So you'll be up to date when the new one comes out, and also
exactly.
Yes, go back through the catalogue. Honestly,
exactly.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, everybody, on this nice Saturday morning, and we'll be back next week. Wave to the camera. Do you have a wave? Let's have a wave.
Yeah, my Zoom wave.
See you soon, everyone. Bye.